Hi guys, welcome to this albeit janky and it might be a little bit hard to follow tutorial on how to do custom model imports for Sonic Racing Crossworlds. Now, it ain't gonna be the best of tutorials, alright? It's gonna be a little bit, it might not be entirely accurate on how you're supposed to do it, but I figure, you know what, fuck it. I might as well show how, I do it at the very least. At least how I figured out how to do it. So, make sure you have Blender installed and all that good stuff. Anyways, so what I recommend doing is, I'm voicing over my own footage here, so if it's a bit off sync, then that's why. Anyway, so make sure you have all that scale stuff set to, but you're going to import your model. For example, I got Godzilla here. This is a model from a mobile game, and just going to get that going. All right. Now, you want to make sure that your model is kind of proportioned the same way to the character you're trying to port them over, because you're going to find out later why that's important. For now, though, don't do what I do here in this case. Without, okay, you're going to do what I do here in this case. You're going to size the model down proportionately so it fits over the character's rig, but don't do what I do where you don't proportion the character right. You know what I mean? Because, again, we're going to see later why that's important. Anyways, so, you're going to size your character down. I recommend going up to the little magnet thing up there on your Blender and just go into pose mode. After that, it doesn't matter it does matter if you do have the mirror thing on, not the modifier, just the symmetry tool. But if your model doesn't have that, then that's okay. And that is where the thing comes in. Anyways, so the exactly version of me that's recording the footage right past me that was recording the footage, you're gonna make sure that your character has the proper fucking proportions. Anyways, so, you make sure everything in the model is moving properly. It has proper weight paints. This is a model from Models Resource. You just go from there and then make sure, if everything in the model is moving properly. It doesn't really matter. It don't really matter. So, once you do that, what you're gonna want to do after you check all of the, the movements on your model, make sure everything is working properly. We're just gonna delete the vector model, for example, here, out of your main Blender file. Which, by the way, I should mention in VoiceOver here, make sure you have 2 windows of Blender open if you can. If not, that's fine. You can have the same model in the same Blender file. It's just that it's easier to have both on hand, so you can go and check the weight paints and weights manually. This is the method that I learned from the Sonic Professor's video tutorials, alongside reading up on the Sonic Crossworlds Discord modding server, which will be linked in the description alongside every single tool that I use for Blender stuff. By the way, if your model ends up having separated objects after you remove the armature and you applied all that, just Control J to join the meshes together, and then Control A to apply scale, location, everything like that. Honestly, if I feel confident enough and my motivation doesn't die out, I might do a Blender tutorial altogether. So, anyways, once you got your thing there, you're gonna go into weight paint mode. We're not gonna be doing any manual weight painting here, though, except for a few times we might have to. But other than that, you got your 2 models here. You're gonna check the weight or vertex groups. I'm sorry. We're gonna check the vertex groups on Vector's model. After that, we're gonna, we're just gonna go through them. We're gonna see what they apply to, all that, where it ends up on the rig or the mesh itself. Basically, think of it as you already have an armature on the model, and think of the weight painting areas as to where the bone controls where that part moves. Or at least that's just how I see it. Listen, I am not a professional when it comes to modding. I just quite literally started out, and the other day, yesterday, I had finally figured out what was making my model imports not work. And that's also very important. For anyone who is already having issues with model imports, make sure you check your files, because don't keep the physics model. I thought there was something wrong with my model import for days now, until I figured out, what happens if I delete this part? And then deleting the physics model fixed that. Anyways, so for parts that don't have the equivalent of a vertex group on the model you want to import, what I do is I go and I select the weight group that model might be applied to, and I select it on the model that I want to import over the character, and then I remove it from any extra vertex groups that it might be applied to. So for example, you have the jaw, and vector doesn't have a jaw vertex group. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take the head vertex group and we're going to apply it to where the jaw vertex group is on Godzilla's model, which is very easy. All you do is you go into edit mode, you deselect everything, and you go into vertex groups, and you select where that vertex group is on Godzilla. So let's see here. Deselect, yep, select, jaw, remove, assign to head, and then you hit the little minus button there. There you go. That's really as easy as I can put it, and also what, again, this is a voiceover, so I'm probably going to be skipping forward ahead a few, but assuming you get the general gist of everything. All right, never mind. Most important thing, you're going to be renaming every single vertex group that's in your model to what it may go to on the model you want to import over. So for example, we got Godzilla's head. We're going to take the vertex group of Vector's head, and we're going to rename it on Godzilla's model. So you see how everything is named like B_H or something like that. We're going to rename it to the vertex groups that is on Vector's model. So for example, B_head to just head, spine, or B_spine, spine. Same goes for pretty much any single model that you try uploading that has a rig. In terms of models that don't have a rig, I'm gonna be honest, I have no fucking idea, unless you want to manually weight paint everything. Other than that, I would recommend getting a plugin for Blender that adds like a basic like meta rig that you can add to a model, and then doing automatic weights, and then just checking and fixing that up on your own. Not weight painting, obviously, because I'm gonna be honest, I don't like weight painting. It really, I'm starting to get the hang of it a little tiny bit just for modding here, but I don't like doing it. I really don't like doing it. So I just usually manually assign vertex groups, which is honestly just the easiest thing that I can do. So anyway, little mini rant aside, we're just going to continue going through all of the vertex groups and everything here. And then after that, you're pretty much done. Now, make sure your model moves properly. Again, this is important, but make sure, for the love of God, you make sure your model is properly, like, sized over the character you want to port over and proportioned. Like, just the regular T-pose won't work. You have to make sure that they match up, at the very least, with the bones of the character. Because as you'll notice later in game, the character will look very, very, very fucking silly. But anyways, so once you want to import the model into Unreal Engine, which by the way, make sure you're using 5.4.4, before you do any exporting, make sure your model, or amateur in this case, is named to amateur, and the bone group underneath, or the little moving guy that isn't named pose, is also named amateur, and the mesh inside is named SK, your model name. Like, for example, vector skin, which is the model that we're going to be replacing in game. Now, once we get that all imported, you know, on the Blender, we're going to export as FBX. And then we're going to make sure selected objects is off. Let's just make a new folder here. Godzilla demonstration file. Yep. Now we're going to make sure our FBX file is also named skvector_skin, for example. We're going to scale it to 0.01 geometry, we're going to make sure apply modifiers is off, put on tangent space, and disable add leaf bones. Then we're going to export to FBX, and we're going to go into Unreal Engine, and I will see you there. So as you can see, I already have things set up here in Unreal Engine, and we're just gonna move things around a little bit. But for modding AI skins and whatnot, and I learned this through, again, the Sonic Professor, because I had to search in the Discord server for Sonic Crossworlds modding as to what I should do here. So what you want to do, because a lot of the AI skins share the same texture, or at least the masks and stuff for textures with the Sonic skin folder, you're just gonna put your texture in there, and you're gonna rename it to whatever texture you want to replace in game. So then you're going to import your FBX file. I would just say import it into like a dummy folder or something. You can ignore all those errors. Now, you're going to take your material, you're going to put it in your material folder. You can take your textures, texture folder. The mesh, the skin or the skeletal mesh and the physics assets, you're going to put in your mesh folder. And then the skeleton itself is going to be put into your skeleton folder. All right, hi, Editor Knives here. I would like to just say, for file layout, which is, honestly, I should have said this first and foremost, the first thing you want to make sure that is all set up before you do any, like, mod stuff. I will be putting up on screen here the file layout that I currently have for, modding stuff. And actually, it's the layout that you should have for model imports, since it's very important and crucial to how it all works. So, yeah. Just import your model into Unreal Engine here. Make sure everything looks okay. And then you're going to cook content for development for Windows. And then you're going to cook your content and wait. Now, when you first install Unreal Engine, it's probably going to take a while for the first cook. But other than that, afterwards, it'll only take around, I guess, a few minutes, depending on how your PC is. Before I forget, make sure on your material, we have the texture here. Okay. Now, on the material model, you got to make sure that if it already has a texture in place and it's already a texture sample, We're going to convert to parameter, and we're going to name that BC. We're going to Control S to save the material. And we're going to exit out of that. And then we're going to cook our content. After it gets done cooking, we're going to open up wherever our folder is for our Unreal Engine content. For example, I have it saved in my downloads folder, I think, Unreal shit. But we're going to go into Unreal shit, Union, saved, cooked, Windows, Union, and then we're going to copy our content folder. We're going to paste it into our game mod folder in the Retalk workflow, which, by the way, I will also be putting this in the description of this video. And we're going to make sure we delete any UE export file that is in the content folder. We're going to keep O1 Union and everything else in there, but we're just going to delete the UEX map thing. I don't know why it keeps exporting with all the cooked content that I have, but we're just going to delete that and then, you know, go forward with the rest. So make sure you have material mesh, and for the love of God, this is important, delete the physics assets. Don't do the same mistake I did and then wonder why your mesh was not fucking appearing in game. I can't emphasize that enough. Anyways, once that's done, go into game repack. You put your mod _p, UCAS, blah, 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 pack files, all that stuff. You're going to put it into a folder. You can name it whatever. I'm naming it Godzilla. Then you're going to go to your mods folder, which to set that up, you just union content packs, tilde mods. You're done. Anyway, put the Godzilla folder in there. You open up Crossworlds, and you pray that this works. We're gonna load up the game here. And he's in game. He's a bit wonky, and he doesn't look good, but again, make sure your mesh is aligned properly to the character you want to rig over or import over, whatever. So yeah, he's a little bit wonky. He doesn't look right, but the point still stands. You managed to get a model into Sonic Crossworlds. If you have any questions, message me on Discord. That'll also be in the description too. Hope this was easy enough to follow. And if you need any help, ask people in the Crossworlds modding Discord. You can also ask me too. Thank you for watching, and bye-bye.